Hello, wherever you are, and welcome to the start of a very special couple of weeks for the Golf's On Leadbetter University and our virtual summit. My name is Ian Carter. I've reported on the game of golf for the best part of the last 2 decades, and one of the real highlights of that process over the last couple of decades has been spending a lot of time with David Leadbetter, as he's helped us out on BBC's coverage of Open Championships and many other major tournaments around the world. And this is a fantastic opportunity to learn so much about the game in this virtual world that we all seem to be occupying these days. Before we get started with our very special guest today, just like to have a quick word about what's coming up over the coming couple of weeks with David. David, hello, how are you?
I'm well, Ian, thank you. Very well.
Good. I know you're having to keep your foot up at the moment, but that isn't really a metaphor for the way you're living life. Busy, busy, busy.
Yeah, I am extremely busy. Yes, I suppose with a little injury I have at the moment, this virtual world probably suits me more than being out in the tee for 12 hours a day.
Now, the hashtag for the virtual summit is Golf's Greatest Minds, and I have to say, when you look at the list of people who are going to be involved over the next couple of weeks, that's not underselling it.
No, we've got some wonderful participants, and none other than obviously Suzy Whaley today. And I think it's all about really, when we talk about growing the game, we've got to look at a lot of different aspects of this game. Certainly, I've been involved in the coaching and teaching side of things, which is one part of it, one big part of it. But yet, I think there's so many other aspects to it. And the thing is now, it's a very specialized job, coaching and teaching. As you know, it's not just looking at a golf swing. It's the mental side. It's understanding biomechanics, how the body actually works. It's nutrition. It's you name it. So it's nice that we have access to all these different experts who can really broaden our minds, and that's what it's all about, really, to actually help not only our coaches and teachers, of which we have more than 100 around the world, but for everybody really out there to improve the quality of teaching instruction. Because to me, if this game is going to thrive, it's actually getting people to play better golf and enjoy the game.
I mean, looking at the names that we've got coming up, the likes of Dave Pells, Sir Nick Faldo, Katrina Matthew, Chris Comer. I think that's going to be a really fascinating session, given what Bryson DeChambeau is doing at the moment, and Pete Cowan as well appearing with you, David. So it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And if you need, I hesitate to introduce you, David, because you are a legend within the game of golf, certainly in a coaching capacity. But I was just looking at the stats that surround you. So it's worth pointing this out right here, right at the very start of this couple of weeks. 26 majors you have coached in, more victories, more than 150 tournament wins all over the world. You've coached 7 players to world #1. There are 34 Leadbetter Golf Academies, and there's a 9th instruction book on the way. I mean, as I say, you don't put your feet up. Do you ever sleep? Do you ever rest?
No, the great thing about this job, Ian, and I'm sure Suzy will concur to a large extent, but I mean, it's never been like a job to me. This has been sort of my hobby, my passion, and obviously in the early years I was playing more, but it's a unique way to make a living. The fact that you're involved in a game that you love, and we're really all, I suppose we're trying to promote it as best we can. So, I mean, writing books and working with players, I mean, it's fun. It's probably the next best thing to working with or doing it yourself. I mean, Nick Faldo, so Nick always used to say to me, he said, well, hey, we've won 6 majors, that's a nice thing for him to say, but it is. I mean, you feel part of it, you feel part of the players, and if I've done my little bit to sort of help the game of golf and to help golf coaches and instructors around the world, then I'm happy about that. That's sort of a little bit of my legacy, I suppose. But I just happened to be in the right place at the right time many moons ago. So it's been a really great journey. A lot of people said, what would you change? And I said, really nothing, because it's been an enjoyable ride all the way through. And the thing is, it's so varied too. I mean, that's the thing. It's not like I'm doing the same thing day after day. There's so many different aspects to it, from writing to doing little radio and TV and all the sort of things that we do as a sidebar. But still, it's it's fascinating, this game, and we hopefully, even under the current circumstances, and it seems to have, I mean, in some ironic way, the game has sort of actually expanded a little bit. More people are playing golf now. I suppose they have more time to play. So, but be that as it may, we've got to really try to keep the traditions of the game going and keep the game healthy.
Absolutely. Well, this is all the kind of stuff that we're going to get into in this session, and it's time really to introduce our very special guest for this opening session, one of the most important and influential figures in world golf. Suzy Whaley is a genuine pioneer, the first woman to be elected the officer of the PGA of America, PGA President, about to be outgoing, but currently PGA President, and a PGA Master Professional. Let's just run through a couple of other things as well before we hear from you, Suzy. An LPGA and Golf Digest Top 50 instructor, 10 times Golf Digest State Teacher of the Year. She's a former LPGA Tour player. And when she won the 2002 Connecticut PGA Championship, she became the first woman for 58 years to qualify for a PGA Tour event, and she played in the Greater Hartford Open. She continues to teach and is Director of Instruction at Mirasol in Palm Beach Gardens. So, Suzy, you are another person who I'm sure never sleeps and never has any time off, and it's fantastic to have you along. Welcome. How are you?
I'm great, Ian. It's such a pleasure to be here, and to be invited amongst that list is certainly an honor. David's so humble, and for everybody watching, it's not as easy as he just made it sound. To say you're in the right time, to be in the right place at the right time. I appreciate that, David, but I think that you've made so many lives. You've impacted so many people in the game, not just the people that stand in front of you on the lesson tee, but from where I sit as a PGA professional, I have every one of your books and have studied them, and thank you for those. Faults and Fixes was like my #1 go-to as a young teacher when I was just baffled by whoever was standing in front of me. And you've done that for thousands of us. So I'm here saying thank you to all you've done, not just for me, but for PGA professionals, LPGA professionals worldwide, because it's pretty tremendous. And I appreciate your humility, because what you've done is pretty special.
Thank you.
Suzy, the title of this session is the Whaley Rule, Forging Your Own Path. The Whaley Rule was something else, wasn't it, back in the day around playing on the PGA Tour? But forging your own path, that is the Whaley Rule right now, isn't it? And it kind of sums up your philosophy.
Yeah, I don't know that I ever intended to have a rule named after me. I don't think anybody really seeks that out. But I joined the PGA of America after I had played on the LPGA Tour. I did a stint with some golf schools with Bob Toski and Jim Flick. I fell in love with teaching and joined the LPGA, teaching in club professional division first. I joined the PGA of America because I wanted to compete more. There were more opportunities to play the game at the tournament level, and I was watching my husband, who's a PGA professional, compete week in, week out, and I was not able to do that. And so he called me out and said, "I'm sick of you complaining. Why don't you join the PGA of America?" And so that's what I did. And so people always laugh, "Did you join to be president of the PGA of America?" And I always say, "No, I joined to beat my husband on the golf course." We've been married 29 years. I still try to beat him every time we play against each other. But that's really how it started. And then I met the most amazing people by playing in tournaments, local tournaments in my section for the PGA of America. It's where I met my mentors, unbelievable friends to this day. It's where I learned things about my own business, how I could grow, how I could get better. And so for me, it was just a platform that I loved and enjoyed. And that turned into competing at a high level within the PGA of America, and hence the Whaley Rule, which makes me laugh to this day, because when I look back at some of the articles, we were playing from about 90% of the men's tee yardage, but it always says I played from the forward tees. You can tell I'm still a little resentful about that, but I probably played from about 6,500 yards competing in that championship. But I'm just so proud of the women that are continuing to play in tournaments at the PGA of America. I'm proud of the things that I've accomplished. Playing, of course, in the GHO is one of those that I believe gave me an unbelievable opportunity to be brave enough to step up and to be a part of an organization and leadership where not a lot of people look like me. And so I'm proud that I decided to play in that. But I'm also really thrilled that I continued my leadership journey.
And to be, we'll bring David in on this in a moment, but to be president of the PGA, to occupy a position which is right at the very top table of the administration of the game of golf. As I say, you're one of the most influential figures in the game now. Do you think that's symptomatic of the way that the game has gone, or does it speak to your kind of pioneering spirit and the game has gone with you, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. And, I think over my tenure, my hope was we would have more women members step up and step in. We have a recruiting process to do that. And we made small strides. We have a long way to go within the industry of the game, bringing in women. And if I can be a small part of that, people can see me as a role model. If they see me in the role, perhaps they'll see themselves in the role, which would be fantastic. But I entered the leadership, really the election process, because I felt like my body of work was substantial, and I felt I was prepared for the role, and that I had something to give, and I had a voice to lend to the team, in hopes of not only evolving what we believe is a game of growth, but also for our members and for everything that they do, because I understood quite clearly what it's like to stand on the tee top all day and to help those in a community. I still do that to this day, like David does. I love it. I love to teach, but I see the operations day in, day out. So as somebody who is in the room trying to progress and help make decisions for others that are doing what I do, it's a lot easier when you're actually doing it in the field to be able to lend a voice that perhaps can affect change. So I hope in the future there'll be even more women in the room. But also more young men that have progressive minds and are helping us evolve the traditions of the game in a way that will capture a greater audience.
David, what's your take on what Suzy's saying there?
Well, I certainly listen. I admire what Suzy's done. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, she is primarily a woman in a man's world. I mean, it's been that way for quite a while, and it's nice to see that things are changing. And it really is fascinating to see how she has been well accepted. I'm sure there was some, tut when you were sort of elected by certain members. But the fact of the matter is, you've just done such a wonderful job, and I think you've expanded boundaries. And so the fact is that things like junior golf league, etc., you've looked at every different aspect, and I think to me. I think what Suzy has done is absolutely incredible, because she's involved in so many different things. When you think in terms of the KPMG LPGA tournament, which Suzy's a huge fan of, and don't say that after you've had a few glasses of wine either. You never get the
So true, so true.
And it's great to see that the PGA have got behind it. It's primarily a women's event. They have a huge seminar for all professional women, and there's such great scope for women getting into the game now. And so if you look at the youngsters, the LPGA girls golf that Suzy has been a part of, and so people don't understand maybe that there's an LPGA and there's a PGA, and they're sort of two separate institutions. And so Suzy's sort of a member of both. She's been double dipping there and sort of assisting in both areas. So it's just great to see. I mean, because we have to expand this game. Look, we've seen over the last probably 2 or 3 years how golf clubs have sort of relaxed rules a little bit now, especially in the UK and even in the US to a large extent, because I say you can't live in the past. Okay, it's not just a game for wealthy people. This is a game for everybody. I mean, it's like, can you imagine if the whole world played golf? I mean, we had 10 times as many golfers around the world. We'd probably have less problems in this world. I mean, so it's a game that I think that Suzy's, it's a business, first of all. Well, secondly, I should say, firstly, it's a passion for a lot of people. And so, she's brought all sorts of people into the game, and that excites me, because to say even from minorities getting more involved, and we need to expand. And so I think Suzy's really been more of a pioneer rather than just being the first female president of the PGA. She had some really unbelievable ideas which are now being started to be utilized.
Well, this session is very much a kind of state of the union. Where are we at with the game of golf? This must be the longest anyone's gone since March in this kind of forum and not used the word COVID. We will use it. We use it now. We'll touch on it now, but what I'd like to do is kind of when we get to the end of the session is grab your tips for how golf can make the most of the current situation that the whole world is living in at the moment. But just as an opening gambit, because the very fact that we're doing this way is another indication of the world that we're living in now. Someone put the point to me that it's taken a global pandemic to have a genuinely successful grow the game initiative, because everyone seems to be playing golf right now. Is that something that you feel that actually, out of all the tragedy that's going on, golf can actually cling to some serious positives at the moment?
You want me to go?
Yeah, Suzy, yeah.
Yeah, so, I think like the world, nobody could have predicted a global pandemic in 2020. And when March hit in the United States, certainly it was very clear that this was going to be an enormous issue. And golf basically shut down in the United States around March 11th. Not every state, not every community, but on the large, most of our golf professionals heard that day, who are PGA members, that they were possibly going to be out of work, furloughed, laid off, clubs closed, whether they were at a public course, whether they were at a municipal course, or whether they were at a private facility, or whether they were working for a manufacturing company or a media outlet and were PGA professionals. So I think instantaneously what it forced us to do at the PGA of America is take really quick heed to the fact that our members were going to be in trouble. And so our priorities had to shift immediately to how can we get back golf reopened as soon as possible in a socially responsible way for not only our members, but our communities and our facilities, for the business of the game, as David alluded to before. And how could we do that in an organized effort alongside all of our allied associations? It was critical to us to make sure that our members had some solvency. So the PGA of America started a golf emergency relief fund for golf industry workers, which we gave $10 million to. Certainly that shifted our priorities as a leadership team from other areas, but most important for our mission was our members and getting back golf. And that's what we did. So we went to legislation, we went to our senators, our congressmen, we went to Washington, we went to local heads of state in every community and shared the Back to Golf guidelines, which we aligned with our CDC here, the Center for Disease Control in the United States, to really sell our case that golf is a socially distant sport that could be delivered responsibly with PGA professionals at the helm. Welcoming people and making people feel like this is a possible opportunity. The PGA Championship certainly helped us deliver that message and inspire people to play the game as they watched the first championship worldwide televised since the Super Bowl. A huge responsibility, but we wanted to use that platform to show the world that golf could be played responsibly and could give people a little joy and could showcase the fact that golf is outside. So as stakeholders, we were all vested. It brought all of our allied associations closer together because we had to work hand in hand and have a unifying message to make sure we were back to work. And what that's done is catapult us. Obviously, from what David said earlier, people are home more, they have more time. This isn't just because of the Back to Golf effort, but it's also because of the way people are seeing us deliver it really responsibly in our communities. So in the United States, we were up 20% in June, 20% in July, 20% in August, 28% in September. And we have 500,000 youth playing the game probably by the end of December that were new to the game, had never been a part of the game. We have this unbelievable opportunity and this uptick in the game that perhaps isn't even those that are traditional. Maybe they're not playing 18 holes, but they're loving golf. Manufacturing is up 300%. So we are in a moment of time where I believe the world has the opportunity to grow even more. I've had people say to me, well, gosh, you're never going to retain this. Golf isn't going to be able to sustain this. There's no way. Why is that? We have trained and skilled professionals around the world ready to deliver. We just finally have an audience that's listening again and that's loving it and that's having fun doing it. And I have my own point of view of why they're enjoying it more. I do believe that a lot of people not me. I love score and I love playing great. So I still worry about my score, but I think many, at least of our members, they're not as worried about the outcome. It's not that important to be great. They're happy to be back out. They're happy not to touch the flagstick. They're loving not raking the bunkers. That's going to be a problem, right? Because I like my bunker raked. But at the end of the day, we as professionals can navigate that and deliver experiences that we're seeing them love now into the future. If we don't do that, shame on us, because it's in front of us. And I think there's room for another 25% growth than where we are today.
Really? I mean, David, what's your assessment of where we're at now?
Well, I think the game of golf has adapted and improvised probably better than any other sport. I mean, we know there's a lot of sports, whether it be in the UK, cricket or football, where they're playing in a bubble, so to speak. The one great thing about golf, even though it's as a viewing audience, it's actually hard to tell that the crowds aren't there, because you're so focused and engrossed in the game itself. Well, I think other sports, basketball, football, baseball, whatever the case may be, they rely on crowds. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I know the players love to play in front of huge crowds. It provides that certain electricity and atmosphere that a lot of them need. But on the other hand, I think we're almost getting used to it, to a point where, whether it be a PGA Tour event, an LPGA event, a European Tour event, we're sort of getting used to the fact, and I think the players have got used to it. They've adjusted really well. You have to give them kudos as well, because it's not easy. I mean, what they're doing, living in same hotels, only two people having dinner together. I mean, the rest, we go on and on and on. So I think the game of golf per se has really adapted so well in a very, very short space of time. And we're lucky, it really probably is one of the safest sports to play. I mean, social distancing, I mean, if you look at most people, one's in the right rough, one's in the left rough, so there's a lot of social distancing there. And so, it's not necessary to sort of sit bang on top of one another or be on top of one another. So I think going forward, hopefully the powers that be look at this and say, golf really is a game where we can still keep playing, where we can keep showing what we're able to produce at the top level. And that's only good for the game. And I say it's exciting to see how many new people are coming into the game in this period of time.
Yeah, you've been spying on my Saturday four balls, David. Left, right, we're all over the place. But we're enjoying it, and we're struggling to get tee times. The demand and the interest in the game has just grown massively in this period. Suzy, what are the barriers that might still exist that will prevent potentially golf making the most of this unique circumstance and potential? As you say, you can see room for a further 25% of growth, but what are the barriers that could get in the way?
Yeah, I think what you just alluded to, right? Access is certainly a barrier, at least here in the United States, as we try to grow amongst all groups of people, really ensuring that they have an opportunity to play on course. And while I don't want to speak for David, but for me, I mean, I love coaching on a tee top. I love engaging with somebody standing in front of me, but the fun of the game is out on course. And we have to come up with a way here, at least in the States, that we start to salvage some municipal properties. The USGA just came out with an unbelievable study on the environmental sustainability of golf courses, which will help us do that as we go into cities and try to salvage some of these properties back into community centers, golf centers, for those that can play there. We're tackling that here in West Palm Beach, Florida, at a local municipal golf course. Gil Hans is helping us redesign that, and we want to make that really this cool golfscape where the community is welcome, where they see it as a place to gather, but also where they see it as a place to play. And so for us, that's really our foundation pillar that we've added at the PGA of America, called a place to play. We're looking to build that out there in that particular city first, and then hopefully take that to other cities where they have land, they have the access and the availability, but cities currently aren't using them for golf. And we want to reinvigorate that. So I certainly think that's a barrier. I think the other barrier is really what I found great success in, and other coaches have as well, is these large group setting programs, where I call mine boot camps, right? Where we have an opportunity to gather and really have great fun with 30 or 40 people all at the same time. then combining those people, I think what golf fails to do, and this is a generalization, many of you may do this, so please don't take it personally, but you know, you join a club or you join a facility that has tennis courts, for example, and you're immediately introduced to people who play at your level. You have a quick game, you've already made friends, and tennis just seems to envelop that team atmosphere. You might be my age and I might be brand new tennis player, but I'm already put on a team and I have 12 people to join me and play with, take lessons with, and try to figure out how to hit the tennis ball around, right, together. We don't do a very good job of that in the game of golf. You know, we have a lesson with someone, they're brand new to the game. We say, great, I look forward to seeing you next week. But we don't connect them with the community that gives them fun people to enjoy learning with, that gives them the opportunity to have some friends they can embarrass themselves with in front of each other. They can tee up from the 200-yard marker, for example, and not care if they're not on the forward tee. They're just trying to play a game from the middle of the fairway to the tee to keep up and keep pace. I do believe we have this incredible opportunity in the game that if we took a little extra time and went back to old school golf professional, which making those connections, picking up the telephone versus an email, giving a shout out to somebody at the club you haven't seen in 2 or 3 weeks, inviting them to have that opportunity with others, is something we just need to do better at. And so I think that's a barrier that we can overcome. It's just during COVID, it's a difficult barrier to overcome because putting people who don't know each other together is tough right now. They don't know, you know, what kind of guidelines they're practicing at home. But I hope we get back to that, and I hope that we as a group of people who care about the game realize that the game's a heck of a lot more fun with somebody else alongside you learning it, and we're the connection to that. We're the ones that can put that together for people.
And David, do you think the game needs to be a little bit more relaxed about itself as well? I mean, you know, hoodies has been the discussion point of the golfing world. Rory at the weekend wearing his hoodie, Tyrrell Hatton winning at PGA wearing the PGA Championship wearing a hoodie. I mean, we shouldn't really have to be talking about this, but it did become a big conversation point because it kind of challenged the norms of golfing traditional attire. Has the game relaxed enough? Should it relax a bit more? Is that a potential barrier?
I suppose you're talking to somebody of the age where, you know, we had to have our socks at the right height, and we couldn't, you know, the girls couldn't have, you know, their shorts too short. And I mean, so I mean, I still think obviously there's some great traditions, and I mean, I'm not saying people should show up in a tank top and, you know, flip-flops. I mean, there has to be a certain decorum, I think. But I mean, within reason, I absolutely, I think we have to look in terms of, who are these people, these younger crowd who are going to play golf? It's probably your top golf crowd, right? People who out there just enjoy hammering a ball around. I mean, there's some top golfers all over the world now. It's one of the most popular pastimes that people can get into. And I think that sort of crowd, we need to sort of promote the fact that, look, there is an opportunity to play. I mean, and I totally agree with Suzy. Look, I mean, the old adage, especially in America, I've always had a big gripe about Junior Golf America. It's probably Junior Golf America, I mean, as good a job as organizations like the American Junior Golf Association do, it's one of the toughest places for somebody who with talent to sort of get known to play tournaments, because you know, playing golf is not cheap at the highest level where you're playing tournaments and traveling all over the place. So I've always felt that, look, being able to even country clubs, some of the finest country clubs as they have in America, and the old thought, okay, well, you join a country club and, you know, you have your dinners and what have you. But I think, to me, you look at all these great country clubs, I mean, some of these places you could shoot a cannon through at some stages, parts of the week. And I just think that juniors need to be sort of promoted to be able to play on these sort of places. I mean, you take courses like Royal Melbourne, for instance, you can get young players on that course so they can become members for $150 a year, something to that effect, you know. And so it's Sunningdale's the same thing, you know, exclusive clubs, yet they sort of promote the game at junior level. And I think in America they still got a long ways to go. I don't see how Suzy felt, and I know we have discussed it in the past, but I just think that there needs to be more access. There probably needs to be more quality 9-hole golf courses. You don't have to necessarily build the best or the greatest, but I mean, they have we reside sort of in Orlando or near Orlando, And they've got a wonderful little 9-hole golf course here. Gil Hans, once again, he seems to have a knack for designing or redesigning these courses. And I mean, their tee times are booked from 7 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. I mean, virtually every day. And so that's what we need to sort of get into, where it's affordable, where you're bringing in a different type of individual into the sport. And we all know, look, when you get on the golf course, it doesn't matter if you're a chairman of a company or if you're a plumber. It really doesn't matter. We're out there playing golf, trying to get the ball in the hole and as few a number of shots as possible. So from that standpoint, it's a great sport. So I think, those are some of the barriers, and hopefully this period of time, I mean, more people are having got into the game. I think it's probably becoming a little bit more expansive, shall we say, rather than restricted.
Suzy, you were nodding away there quite vigorously at some of the points that David was making.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with him more. If I had a magic wand and could, say, let's make golf this, right? I would beg of the private clubs in the United States to look at their tee sheets, to do it in a way that was possible and tangible for them, to where they did open up certain times to a junior golf community that perhaps couldn't necessarily be there on their own, even if their parents perhaps don't play. I realize there's a lot of logistics that go and that are involved in that, and a ton of stakeholders, but I do believe we can do it, and that we should do it. We should have the opportunity. Youth on Course is a group here in the United States that's doing tremendous work in this space, where they go out and seek out corporate sponsorship to pay for parts of the greens fee, as opposed to a child paying the whole thing. A child maybe pays $5, the corporation matches the rest at a public facility. Those are the types of programming ideas and initiatives that I hope more companies get behind and support, as we look not only to grow the game, but it's also healthy for the community. Golf, as we all know, and I'm preaching to the choir, is a great place to be. You're occupied. Yes, you can have a technology with you. We realize technology is part of everybody's life, but golf creates great kids. It's all the disciplines that golf provides. David and I could say as coaches, that's what we're helping to deliver, but it's really the game. It's the integrity of the game. It's the resilience. It's the determination. It's not getting it right away. That's the fun of it, and the pursuit and trying to get it, which I'm still trying, right? And it's been a long time, and I still don't have it down. So I mean, it's an opportunity, I think, to make the world a little bit more like the game. And if we have a chance to do that, and together, I truly believe we can do it. It's just going to take some people stepping up and opening their doors and saying, let's do it. And I believe we're on our road to that. I really do.
Let's broaden it out now and get your views on what the future of coaching is. Is it going to be as it has been, or is modern technology, and I don't necessarily mean TrackMan or whatever device you want to discuss in terms of measuring performance and that kind of thing, or golf club technology, but communications technology and that sort of thing. How is that going to influence, do you think, the coaching environment going forward, David?
Well, I think, look, we certainly are in the age of technology. I mean, there's still, as Suzy said a few minutes ago, there's still probably nothing better than having a one-on-one session with somebody where you can touch them, feel them, get to a point where they have a sense of what's going on. But I think there is definitely, if you look at, when you only have to go on YouTube, Ian, and there's probably about 7 million pieces of advice, which is probably quite confusing for the average golfer. Needless
I only
to say.
listen to yours, David.
Thank you. But no, but I think, look, there's a lot of golf professionals now taking the lead and doing a lot of online instruction. And listen, it's definitely going to be the wave of the future. I mean, kids are growing up with this stuff. Okay, so I mean, maybe it's a little more difficult for people in their 40s and 50s and 60s to get the hang of it. But nevertheless, I think it's when you look at it, I just think there's great scope for, as Suzy was saying, look, getting groups together. I mean, having sort of exercise classes like they do with the Peloton or whatever the case may be, where you're getting groups of people to develop their technique. We all know that you can develop technique away from from hitting balls or from the range or from the practice tee or from the golf course a lot easier if you're not actually concerned about where the ball's going. So I think getting people into the game by having programs that, hey, you have a 10-session program where you can go through all the various movement patterns and develop techniques. So when people actually go out there, they've got much more of a clue about the game and probably will enjoy it more. I mean, in the beginning, people go out and say, well, why don't you come out and play golf? Well, I've never played before. Well, that's all right. We'll give you a few tips. Well, I mean, that's probably a disaster there, because we all know that, that never works. And so starting off on the right foot, I mean, getting into group sessions, large group sessions, similar, say, to Peloton or any other, whether it be yoga, it doesn't matter. I mean, you look at in the fitness world, I mean, there's so much of this now, and I think we're a little slow and a little behind the 8 ball here. I think we can get into that, and it could make one heck of a difference. And so, I mean, there are some people doing it on a limited scale, but I think it needs to be looked upon as like, hey, this isn't. We think about golf for so many people, look, it's a way of being able to move, be able to get out of bed without aches and pains. I mean, it's from a mental standpoint, it's something that they can focus on. And sitting in front of the TV all day watching Netflix is, can get certainly a little monotonous. So I think being able to get out and play, and I say having access to play. So that's the one thing, is getting the golfers who may be prepared to do this. The other thing is being able to have a place for them to play.
Suzy, what's your take? Where do you see the future going? And one of the things that crosses my mind is that we can all see in the professional game the drive for extra distance, the Bryson DeChambeau effect, the Matt Wolff effect, and that sort of thing. Are you, as coaches, are you now being confronted by people saying, I want to smash the ball as far as I possibly can? Has that become a driving force?
That was before Bryson.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's been going on for the 30 years I've been coaching. But I can tell you that my philosophy, and my husband's as well, and all of our academies has always been, if we have youth in front of us, to teach speed, but to do it alongside of sequence of motion, athleticism. We're all about building the whole child, not just one aspect of that. But if you're going to compete in today's environment, whether it's on the LPGA tour, the European tour, the PGA tour, distance has been proven that it's an advantage. So certainly as a coach, I can't ignore that, and want to ensure that I can help people get their goals, right? And if their goal is to increase their club head speed, then we're going to do it. And we're going to do it through multiple ways, right? Through fitness, as David was talking about earlier, nutrition, strategy, forces, physics, biomechanics, every way I possibly can. And so I'll be tuning in this entire time to listen to everybody else and get some words of wisdom in that respect. But I also believe that what COVID has done, there were many early adopters, obviously, to technology, great instructors who took advantage of a marketplace that was wide open for them, because so many instructors were not taking advantage of YouTube or Instagram or Twitter or Coach Now, or the multiple other opportunities we have to engage with our consumers in a technology platform. What's happened due to COVID is many more professionals are keenly aware of the opportunities in front of them to connect to their consumer base. And if you're connecting to your consumer base, you're obviously delivering an experience that might be different than in person, but one that your customer's expecting now. Zoom is a way of life, or whatever we're on here, Google Meets. This is a way of life for people. They're accustomed now to a screen. They're accustomed to doing their fitness in a mirror, but they're looking at somebody else. They're accustomed to Peloton and whatever other BioFlex machines, where people are sitting there yelling at them, telling them to do what they need to get done, or coaching them through the series. And we are developing that now through our PGA.coach model. I would love in short order for artificial intelligence through our partnerships at the PGA of America, that I can just call David up in my cart, right? And he's sitting there chatting with me about what I'm doing wrong. If I'm hitting it fat, hey, can you help me out here? Why can't we do that? We can do that. And we can make sure that the consumer can have access to us on their time versus when we're available. And for PGA professionals, that's a business. You're getting paid 24/7 instead of the 8-10 hours that you've booked in your lesson book. And that, to me, is where the business of coaching is going, where I believe our professionals need to get some family time back. I believe they need to have an opportunity to do something outside of their workspace, but still be able to make a living that they can care for their family and take care of their family. So if instead of 7 days a week on a lesson tee, it's 4 full days a week, and then you're making money the other 3 days because of your technology and your interaction with your consumer virtually, why in the world wouldn't we, as an allied association or as an administrative association, be delivering that resource to our professionals? So my hope is that that actually happens. And there are people, there are PGA professionals that have built apps that are doing it now.
When you think about it, if I could just interject, I mean, relatively speaking, I think if I read a figure, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a couple of years ago from the National Golf Foundation, which says really probably only 5% of golfers really take full-time instruction. All right, I mean, somebody might take the odd lesson once every year or what have you, but from a regular standpoint, which it really, so you've got 95% of people who are playing golf there who really would, for the most part, would benefit from instruction. And certainly with the internet now, they have the ability to have access to this instruction. And so as long as it's done in a way that is fairly simple, I mean, you know, it's not always easy teaching teaching feel, so we say, through video, but yeah, I mean, look, there's drills and exercise and things you can do to develop consistency and promote the movement patterns that you need. I mean, you know, we have, you know, we talk about, we have this Leadbetter Kids program, which is really exciting, and we've got these almost Leadbetter Kids academies around the world now, where we're promoting really the athlete in these young kids from the ages of 4 to 14, and because that's really what, I mean, people want to think in terms of playing some great golf. And you know, look, there's a lot of kids who are really good athletes in a lot of different sports, and they're not utilizing their athleticism. And so, you know, in golf, it's one of those things. I mean, probably primarily because it's a stationary ball game as opposed to, say, tennis or cricket or baseball or anything, or ice hockey. You know, with it's a moving object, they create this natural athleticism. I mean, we get players, certainly even youngsters, who are overthinking it and they lose their athleticism. So there's a lot of things that we can do as PGA professionals to really promote this. And not only in the US, but hey, in the UK, in Europe, I mean, in Asia, I mean, the market is wide open. And so we can definitely grow this game. I mean, and hopefully this, you know, COVID really is a springboard to this. So I think it's opened all of our eyes about how can we just keep this momentum going.
Also worth making the point, obviously, about the sort of online lessons and the potentials for associate university membership at you know, through leadbetter.com and all of that kind of thing. I mean, you're on this already, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I never went to university, Ian, so I actually had to form my own.
Neither did I, actually. It's
well done.
You know, it's been exciting for me because it's really helps. Look, I like sharing knowledge. I think it's really important to be able to, I say, have all these different experts who we've got this week, for instance, in the next 2 weeks, and others who can actually help people to, I mean, look, you know, there was a very famous fellow who Suzy Whaley knows very well, who used to run the education part of the PGA when I first came to America all those years ago, Gary Wyron. And Dr. Wyron said, look, I always remember, it stuck in my mind, we who dare to teach must never cease to learn. And so I've always used that, and we use that as a philosophy for all our coaches, because it's like there's so much to learn. You just can't handle. I mean, that's why you're seeing specialists, I mean, whether it be short game experts, putting experts, full swing experts, psychologists, physiologists. I mean, so yes, we've tended to be jack of all trades in the past, but now I say it's very specialized, especially at the upper level. And the great thing is about, if you take Formula One, look, most of the cars that we drive ourselves are sort of have come about through Formula One experimentation, research and development, right? So it's the same thing here. I mean, the fact is that whatever somebody Bryson DeChambeau is doing, I mean, the average golfer's got no chance of doing it, but some of that could certainly spill over to a point where a little bit of this and a little bit of that can actually help somebody to sort of fulfill whatever potential they might have.
And so important to create an environment of learning and development, isn't it, Suzy?
I think you just have to enjoy the process. And every time, and I say this all the time, every time I would attend, for example, an education program at our merchandise show, and I would think I've got it, right? This is the year, I've got it. My students are getting better. I know what I'm doing. Wow, finally I've made it. And I leave the merchandise show going, I know nothing. I have nothing in front of me. I have to start over. So I just find great joy in hearing from other coaches in what they've figured out, either whether it be scientifically or through experience or through their players. I certainly don't teach top tour players like David does. So I love to hear about that, but I also want to relate it to those that I do teach. I teach a lot of elite juniors, and that's important to me. And so to hear about the next step and where they're going is something that I love to engage in. I just think sometimes, or oftentimes, some professionals have said to me, well, you know, I don't really know what they're talking about, so I'm concerned about participating or going and being a part of it. I wasn't good at physics, or I don't really understand anatomy. And I always say back, fantastic, then this is the seminar for you, and not to worry. You know, I still have to look up supination, and you know, I mean, I just think we have to give ourselves a little bit of a break and understand that, you know, one thing that Jim Flick, you know, pounded in my head, like Gary Weiner, and got into David's, is it's about the person standing in front of you and the experience you're delivering to the person, right? This is a partnership. This isn't a half an hour and you're never going to see them again, I hope. And that's the way I look at it. So, you know, whether we have a great lesson or whether we have some things I feel like I could have delivered better, well, I'm going to get there, and we're going to get there together. And in the process, what my students can count on from me is I'm going to study. I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to understand what we need to get done to help them reach their goals. And I'm going to deliver that to them in a package that makes sense and is fun for them to try to get there. And so, you know, I just think sometimes we're a little bit prone to saying, well, gosh, I don't know if I buy into all that. You don't have to buy into it. Just listen, and you may pull something out that might be really helpful for your next student that walks in front of you.
As a sidebar, Ian, you mentioned, you know, amateurs are calling up and asking about how they can get more distance. I've had 2 tour players in the last 4 or 5 days do the same thing. So it's like it's a never-ending quest. It's going to be interesting to see how the mad scientist does over the next couple of years.
Well, it is, and I was going to ask you about that, because obviously we saw Rory McIlroy chasing extra yards off the tee and extra club head speed, you know, with the data he was putting out on social media, and you kind of think to yourself, well, if Rory McIlroy thinks he needs to hit the ball further, then where is the game of golf going right now? I mean, it'd be fascinating to get your takes on that. We're fairly near the end of the session. If anyone's got any questions, then please use the facilities on the webinar to get in touch. I perhaps should have said that earlier on, but anyway, I hope we've addressed most of the points. But just on that sort of quest for distance, it is the driving force of the game right now, isn't it?
I think to some extent it always has been. I mean, it's always been that sort of the mythical aspect of the game, the holy grail, if you will. How do I hit it longer? I mean, people would always tongue in cheek, but it's a certain amount of truth added to it. I said to most amateurs, well, if you can learn to hit it straighter first, so you're not losing all these golf balls, you're going to have more fun. Probably by hitting it straight, you're going to be right in the middle of the club face, and you will hit it longer. And so, but when you look at somebody like Bryson, I mean, who really is, I mean, he's unique. And I mean, look, that's not going to work for everybody. I can't see Justin Thomas putting on, you know, 3 stone, which for your information, Suzy, that's 42 pounds. Okay.
Not a chance.
I don't
not
think
me
I
either.
can do it. So I mean, it's very interesting. I think it's a great talking point. You know what? And I think it's actually increased the viewership when he's playing. I mean, he's the most talked about thing in golf right now. There's no question about it. What's Bryson doing when he tweets, you know, he hit it, you know, carried over 400 yards this past weekend. It's like it creates a whole lot of interest. I mean, I can't wait to see what the viewership's going to be like with Augusta if he uses a 48-inch driver and what he could do to that golf course. I mean, it's ridiculous where if he was able to hit it 400 yards on a regular basis, I mean, he's got nothing green. So listen, I mean, even the top players, Rory himself got into a muddle with saying, well, I don't think this is right. And Matt Fitzpatrick got into a muddle saying, well, it's unfair. And, that's the nature of sport, isn't it? We want to get quicker. We want to get faster. We want to jump higher. We want to throw further. We want, so I mean, you have to admire what he's doing. And as I say, I think, Justin Rose mentioned the other day, and I think that's absolutely right, that you've got to look maybe 3 years down the road. Hopefully he doesn't accrue any sort of injuries. You just don't know. I mean, it's like taking 9 protein shakes today is probably not the way for most amateur golfers to think about increasing their distance. But it is fascinating. I mean, I think power is a factor, no question about it. And the problem is that, all these golf courses are going to get outdated? Are they going to have to build 9,000-yard golf courses now to accommodate these people? I mean, when we look in terms of restrictions, of water restrictions and land restrictions, so it's I mean, I've always been a bit of a fan of the bifurcation, whereby I think, hey, the tour is going to have to sort of rule themselves, and where you take baseball in America, for instance. They're in. I mean, look, the college players use the aluminum bats. Okay, I have to sort of switch lingo here. Sorry, but whereas the
world.
Right. So it really. I mean, that may come in at some stage, because, I mean, look, is it fun to watch everybody blitz a golf course? I mean, look, if somebody shoots, I mean, if Bryson hypothetically shoots 30 under par at Augusta, what are they going to say? Say, this is a tough golf course. Is this a true test? I mean, so it's, there's pros and cons, and I think the argument's going to go on for quite a while. I really do. I don't know what you think, Suzy, but I mean, it's interesting, and I think, it's certainly a talking point.
I think it's definitely going to go on for a while. I think what's really interesting is if you take a look at the LPGA and the longest hitters on the LPGA, the Maria Fassis, the Angel Yins, the Ann Van Dams, and I'm forgetting others, who really, there's a rookie, and I can't say her name correctly. It's a very, very long name. It starts with a P, so I apologize. God forbid her teacher's on the line. But she hits it over. She averaged over 300 yards last week, and but they're not winning, right? But they're not winning yet. So the conversation in the LPGA Tour is very similar. How can we get more distance? I was at the KPMG Women's PGA Championship at Aronimink, and honestly, the top 5 weren't necessarily the longest hitters on that tour, but they're still winning. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And David's right. When you have an invitational like Augusta, which is just that, it's an invitational. What will they do if a Bryson shoots 30 under? I mean, time will tell. But will he? I don't know the answer to that either. So I think the viewership will be incredibly high based on his commentary of using a 48-inch driver. I'm going to buy one if he, because at the end of the day, I need more power too, David. I need help. So, I'm looking for that holy grail, as is everybody else. But where the game goes in general, where the R&A and the USGA take this, I know this is on their table. I know this is in front of them. It has been in front of them. It came to the PGA of America when they did their distance insight studies this past year. We made commentary to it. Obviously, in our best interest at the PGA of America is those that play the game every day at our facilities. We certainly wouldn't want to see a rollback for the amateur golfing body in any capacity. According to our membership, we surveyed our membership, and that was the result. So it's going to be interesting. And this conversation is not. We have top famous historical figures in the game coming out saying the ball should be rolled back, and then we have top players saying no chance. So it'll be fun to watch.
And just when a player comes to you as coaches and says, look, I need to be hitting the ball further, is your instinct as their teacher to say, right, okay, let's sit down and work out how you're going to hit the ball further? Or is it to say, well, actually, I'm not sure in your case that is necessarily the best way for you to make lower scores? I'm just intrigued into what goes into your head as coaches when those conversations come around.
Well, I think if I can answer this first, Suzy, I think name of the game really is learning to score, right? And so whatever we feel is going to actually help this person score better. I mean, if their whole goal is to hit the ball longer, well, then you're going to go the equipment route, certainly. Look, is a person prepared to lose 30 pounds in order to sort of move better? Well, maybe, maybe not. Are they prepared to spend time exercising to get more flexibility? Maybe, maybe not. So all these factors come into it. I think I mean, as coaches, we're sort of designing a personalized, tailor-made program for people, which allows them then to say, okay, hey, I think we can help you to play your best golf by doing this. I mean, look, I mean, there is a certain thing called talent as well here, and that we mustn't forget that. And as I say, if you look at somebody like a Bryson DeChambeau, he sort of has the frame where he could actually put on this muscle mass, if you will. I mean, a lot of people don't have that build, and so I remember, look, quite candidly, I remember Nick Faldo when he started to get into sort of the physical aspects of the game. When he put on some mass and some bulk, he didn't move anything like as well as he did when he was slimmer and he had more mobility. And I think we've seen that in Tiger over the years too, you know. So I mean, in the quest for distance, we've got to be careful we don't lose the overall foresight of what we're trying to do in this game, which is, hey, the name of the game is scoring. And so I think for most golfers, say hitting it straighter is probably better than developing a good short game. So, but if somebody's really genuinely interested in sort of putting on more distance, yes, there's ways of doing it, but look, it takes a while. It's not something normally you sort of see, okay, and I mean, Bryson's amazing how much he put on in a short space of time, but generally speaking, there's a certain limit. I mean, if you look at a Matt Fitzpatrick, okay, who's a fine golfer, he's a slightly built young man. There's a certain, you don't feel like he could probably put on maybe 5 or 10 yards if he got maybe a driver or a golf ball to fit them better, maybe. But there's a certain limit, and so I mean, Bryson's pushing the limits, that's for sure. So, which is exciting. I mean, I think as a coach, I mean, we look at it and say, wow, let's see. I mean, and it's going to certainly influence a lot of people, but we have to remember that 99.5% of the people that play this game are not professional athletes or not tour players. I mean, they're out there to enjoy the game more. And yes, if they can hit the ball a little bit longer. I mean, I always think back to Ely Callaway, who, when he had his ERC driver and the thing did go further. And that's my thought on bifurcation, because the fact is, if you can get a driver that an amateur can, I mean, and they can do that. I mean, being involved with Callaway, I know that they can produce a driver that can hit the ball longer. It may be illegal as the rules stand right now, but what's the harm for a 20 handicap to hit 1 or 2 tee shots 20 or 30 yards long they've ever hit it? Because that's what grabs people. The fact that, wow, I hit it here on this particular hole. So it's you know, that's sort of my take on it. So,
Suzy, we're running out of time, but again, you were nodding along there with David.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think you have to develop a plan for the person standing in front of you. You know, for me, if you hit it in the center of the face, it typically goes farther right away. So normally I address that quickly. I have a little theory on my new players. You know, I do like them to get a tee shot, obviously consistently up in the air. I'd love to see them get it between 130, 150 yards if they're playing a forward tee, because I know then I can get them breaking 100 pretty quickly. So for me, it's all about, you know, they want to play the game just like everybody else in a way that they feel good about it. They don't necessarily have a specific number in mind, but I try to eliminate those blow up holes for most of my students. That tends to be the greatest gain for them. So it's not necessarily about making more birdies. It's not necessarily about hitting more greens in regulation, which we all know is the case if somebody wants to shoot within the 80s or the 70s. But, you know, most of the clientele that most of us are probably teaching are 115, maybe to 95, right, in that zone, but they prefer to be under the 100. If I can get rid of the 7s and the 8s and or even less doubles, I'm always trying to help them mitigate the errors. You know, 1 error a hole or one flop a hole where they've just, you know, chunked a shot instead of 2 or 3. And if I can do that and make them a little more consistent, a little more center face contact, and alongside that, a little confidence that they don't have to worry so much about the strike because you can just go find it wherever it goes. I think that put together brings people back to the game more. And I think to David's point from earlier, with only 10% of the population taking lessons, out of 26 million, that's 2 million people that we have a chance to help. And we know the better they get, the more golf they play. The more golf they play, the more time they spend at the club, the more food and beverage they enjoy, the more the facility as revenues go up. And so the goal is for us, yes, to have more people come and enjoy coaching with us, but also to make them better. And it's our responsibility to do that in a way that's best for that person standing in front of you.
Okay, we're nearing the end. We have had some questions in, and here's one that I want to put to you, Suzy, from Heather King. What was the defining moment that you knew you could become or wanted to become the PGA of America president? I know we all say we can be anything that we want to be, but when did you know, and how did you know that it could be you? She says, "Thank you, Suzy," from a fellow female PGA member.
Well, thank you for the question. Thanks for being a PGA member. You know, there was a defining moment for me, and it was an invitation. And that invitation came from a gentleman who was my executive director in the section where I belonged. And he asked me, he said, "Suzy, when you're done with your term as a board member, are you going to run for national office? I think you would be really great at it, and I would support you in that quest." And I said, you know, I'm considering it, but I'm unsure. I went home that evening and spoke to my husband, who's, you know, an unbelievable partner for me, to be able to bounce off fears, ideas, being brave, courageous. This is something I really want to put myself to. And in those two conversations, I can tell you it was very clear that I had more to give. I knew there were things that I wanted to be a part of. And the only way I could do that is if I had a seat at the table. So I wasn't willing to take no as an answer. I never feared not winning, because if I didn't win, I knew I had my career. I knew I had my wonderful family. I knew I was still going to be in the game in a way that I could affect change. So I wasn't afraid of not winning. It was more about, you know, why me? What vision could I put out there that would resonate with those that were voting? And what could I do to make the game better when I left that particular office? And I wanted desperately to feel like I had made the game a better place. And the only way I could do that was to be in the room. So that's why
You've got 3 days to go. You've got 3 days to go. Do you feel like you've achieved that?
I do. I'm proud of my tenure.
Good, good. And also one of the other aspects that I know you were very keen to point out is that you no longer have to have American citizenship to be a member of the PGA of America. Yeah,
that's correct. It's exciting. We've been working on that for quite a while, and I'm proud of the fact that that was eliminated at our 2019 annual meeting. So for any of you, we're certainly not looking to take away from the membership of the country that you're in. But we welcome you to also join us in our education process and become a PGA of America member as a non-citizen. And David's been way ahead of the curve with his education plan way before virtual. David had come with his virtual education. Here we're getting MSRs for the PGA of America, his education moving forward. We're looking to put on PGA.com, have MSRs for that. So it's just incredibly exciting to be surrounded by others around the world who are looking to have the same purpose that we are.
A couple of other questions that have come in. David, you say that those who dare to teach must never cease to learn. What was the most interesting idea that you learned most recently?
Oh, most recently. That's a good question, actually.
That's from Adam.
Beg pardon?
That's from Adam Polland.
Oh, right. Let's see, what have I learned recently? You know, the interesting thing is I don't know about Suzy, I'm sure it's the same for her, but you know, the biggest thing you learn about people's character, okay? And, you know, I've started doing a lot of work with Patrick Reed, and you know, the thing I learned is how much of a competitor this guy is. I mean, it's amazing, you know, and he's had a very tough upbringing, and I think a lot of people misread him tremendously, pardon the pun. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, from a competitive standpoint, I mean, we can only, you know, see him, you know, Captain America and the Ryder Cup and what have you. I mean, it's intriguing. So I think, you know, I didn't realize that somebody was so, I mean, I would say more than anybody. I mean, and I've worked with some players who've been very focused, but from a single-minded purpose, not worrying about the money. It's all about the trophies and being able to achieve perfection. So I think, you know, it was one of those things that was very eye-opening, and you know, you only get a few people like that in all walks of life. So I think, you know, not so much a technical thing, but I mean, obviously always learning little things about how do you communicate in a different way. And I mean, that's the fun thing about, you know, all these seminars and what have you, that, I mean, I like going to some of these, obviously a lot of the national PGA seminars, because you do get people's different ideas. I always tell our instructors, never write off an idea, because you might not like it, but it certainly could hold water for some of the people that we actually teach and coach. So I suppose just say learning more about the individual and taking more note about what this person actually wants, rather than trying to stamp as a coach our authority on this particular individual.
Interesting. And final question for the session, and it comes from Faith Snell. Hi, Faith. She says, "Hi, Suzy. I'm an aspiring LPGA golfer. My one question for you is, how can you rewire your mental game to your advantage? What are the key things top LPGA, PGA golfers do to prepare for a round or a shot that differs from amateurs?" And that's, as I say, from Faith.
Hi, Faith. Well, congratulations and best of luck in your quest. My daughter is on that same quest. Hopefully you'll run into her. Her name is Kelly. And, you know, she asks me the same question all the time. What I can give you is something that helped me and that I share with my students along the way, because there's so many ways that you can get stronger. Not only fortitude-wise, meaning your physique and your fitness and your game, but in your mental fortitude of how you address the golf course, your fellow competitors, and the actual event itself. But I worked with a gentleman named Dr. Richard Coop when I was getting ready to play on the PGA Tour. And you can imagine, you know, the nerves that went along with me being a full-time head golf professional. I had 2 young children. 9 and 6 at the time. I was a full-time mom. My husband was a full-time golf professional. So dual working household, and I was just going to happen to compete against the best male golfers in the world on national television around the world. Not a big deal. So, you know, I laugh about it now, but, you know, incredibly daunting. But I was going to go as prepared I could. I was going to surround myself with a support team to help me get there. I was going to work out more than I ever had in my whole life to be physically prepared. But the mental side of it was something I knew I needed help with. And Dr. Coop I had worked with in college. And it's incredibly simple advice that I hope you'll think about and try the next time you're in an event. We walked through, obviously, many times me visualizing the golf course, playing the golf course in a way that I wanted to play it in those particular 2 rounds, which I did relentlessly. But what he said to me every time we met was, well, did you consider the crowds? Did you consider the time it would take you to get from the tee? Did you consider walking from the locker room through? Did you put in all the aspects of sound and smell? No, I hadn't. So then I did that. And then what he gave me was an opportunity to be okay with my nerves. And he said to me, what I'd like you to do when you go out and participate on that first tee is I want you to give yourself 3 mistakes. Really, they could be horrible mistakes, but I want you to allow yourself 3 mistakes during the round that didn't meet your visualization that you had previously. And that's what I did. And ironically, I made 2 of them on the first hole. And so I hit a pretty decent drive. I hit my second shot where I had imagined, knowing that I couldn't get to the green in 2, right up on the front of the green. I had a small little uphill chip, maybe 20 feet from the hole. I left it 4 feet under the hole, exactly where I had imagined, and realized very quickly that I forgot to imagine myself putting. So I couldn't breathe, I couldn't move. I missed the 4-footer. I missed the 5-footer coming back. I had about a 1-footer left. I thought I was going to be there all day. I made the putt, and I had a huge smile on my face. And the only reason I smiled to this day was because I thought, great, I have 1 more mistake. The ball's gone in, and I can still move on. And I can tell you, because of that, I allowed myself to breathe. I allowed myself to enjoy the moment. I had the best round of golf I've ever had in my career, certainly not score-wise, but playability. I shot a 75 after a double on the first hole, which was a tremendous round of golf for me under those circumstances at the time from that yardage. But I credit that, and I credit him with giving me an ability to stop thinking about the outcome and just stay in the process and enjoy the moment I was in. Because the last thing I wanted to do, Faith, was not to remember being a part of the event. And I know anybody who's listening that's a tour player or a competitor, you've played a round of golf that you can't remember. And I wanted to be present for the entire round. So that's how I hope you'll look at it moving forward. I hope you'll remember that you're lucky to play this game professionally, and to try to enjoy it even in the moments where you're not doing it very well.
That truly is a wonderfully, wonderfully inspiring story, and such fantastic advice. It's amazing. I was reading up about Walter Hagen only yesterday, and his mantra was that he was allowed 7 mistakes around, and it was exactly the same principle.
Well, how come I only got 3?
Well, no, he won 11 majors. Come on. But anyway.
It's 7 mistakes, 7 pars.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's true.
There you go. It wasn't a double bogey on number 1.
Listen, we could go on and on, but we're out of time. It's been an absolute pleasure, Suzy. Great to see you again. I really look forward to the day that we don't have to be virtual and we can meet up again. Likewise with you, David. And I know you're going to be very busy over the next fortnight. But Suzy, thanks so much for kicking us off in such fantastic fashion. The virtual summit runs through until November the 7th. There are so many fascinating sessions coming up, so do make sure you check in with the upcoming sessions. Tomorrow we're going to hear from Dr. Jim Lair, the world-renowned sports psychologist. His session is How to Win in Golf and in Life. How enticing is that? I'm sure it's going to be well worth joining. That's it from now. From our guests today, David Leadbetter and Suzy Whaley, and from me, Ian Carter, it's bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, David. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.